Hi, welcome to National Group One's policy analysis on the National School Lunch Policy. Today, my group members, Pamela, Kelsey, Richard, and I, will be discussing the National School Lunch Program, which will be referred to in this presentation as the NSLP. This critical policy has shaped the educational and public health landscape in the United States for nearly 80 years. Since its inception in 1946, the NSLP has aimed to address the pressing issues of child malnutrition, agricultural stability, and national security. Through the years, this program has adapted to meet students' changing needs, providing nutrition and fostering an environment where children can actually thrive academically and socially. In this presentation, we will explore the NSLP's evolution. We will analyze it through various policy frameworks, and then we want to highlight its connection to broader societal trends and other educational policies. The historical context of the NSLP was established in response to alarming data after World War II. The data showed that there was a widespread of malnutrition among young men. These findings prompted the federal government to act, recognizing that proper nutrition was essential not only for public health, but it was also important for national security. By purchasing surplus crops from farmers and integrating them into school meal programs, the government not only stabilized food prices, but it was also able to ensure that children had access to nutritious meals, setting the foundation for a policy that would have long-lasting effects for generations to come. The picture on the screen talks about the benefits that farmers gain from this situation. Some of the bullet points highlight the fact that farmers were able to actually utilize the abundance of their crops in a better way by being able to hand it out and keep account of what they grew. And it also gave students access to healthier foods and introduced them to healthier options for eating. The NSLP, has continued to evolve. Programs like War on Poverty initiatives helped to expand access to meals for lower income families, and the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010 introduced healthier food options to combat rising childhood obesity rates. More recently, during our pandemic in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic, the NSLP was able to ensure that children continued to have access to meals even when schools were closed. That was founded from Ralston in the 2008 U.S. Department of Agriculture. In order to analyze policies, we use frameworks so that they can provide structured methods in which we can assess whether policies are being effective, we can look at their impact, and we can also focus on their unintended consequences. Frameworks helps us to ensure that there is a comprehensive evaluation and a guiding decision making that helps to improve policy outcomes. To understand NSLP's rate of effectiveness or the lack thereof, we can apply several policy frameworks. For example, the VNA PON framework examines the program's implementation through the lens of the federal capacity. Through the federal capacity, we're looking at the political influence, we look at stakeholders' needs, and we're able to see that it stresses the need for the NSLP to adapt to changing political climates, political health trends, and also economic conditions. Other frameworks, such as the Kelly Masons, it emphasizes a policy's ability to be flexible. These frameworks point out that as children's needs evolve, the NSLP must evolve as well to meet the needs over time. We use frameworks to analyze policies because they help us to provide structured methods to assess their effectiveness, the impact, and the unintended consequences of policies. Frameworks help us to ensure that there's a comprehensive evaluation and a guiding decision-making tool that helps us to improve policy outcomes. To understand the NSLP's rate of effectiveness or the lack thereof, there are several policy frameworks that we can apply. For example, we have the Vinay-Pon framework, which examines the program's implementation through the lens of the federal capacity by looking at political influence and also the stakeholders' needs. It stresses that the NSLP must adapt to changing political climates, public health trends, and also economic conditions. Other frameworks, such as the Kelly, emphasizes flexibility. These frameworks point out that as the children's needs evolve, the NSLP must evolve as well in order to meet the needs over time. McQuaylin's framework reminds us of the importance of engaging with stakeholders and gathering real-time feedback to refine the policy. It's important to ensure that the policies actually align with the needs of the communities that it serves. Finally, we can look at Cinder's framework because it highlights how broader contextual factors such as the political and economic conditions actually influence policy outcomes. Taken together, the frameworks underline a central message. The NSLP's success relies on the ability of policymakers to adapt, to listen to their stakeholders, and to understand the broader context in which it operates. The intersection of policy on human levels or the society impact that the NSLP has both rely on the political and the human level, and it impacts students and the society. It's the most widespread initiative aiming to foster healthy eating among low-income youth. That was quoted by Kaiser and Hamlin. Given that students spend most of their day in school, having access to affordable and healthy meals is not just a matter of nutrition. It's actually critical for students' academic success and their overall well-being. Research by Kaiser and Hamlin suggests that continuous long-term programs like the NSLP are more effective than temporary initiatives. This underscores the importance of a stable and reliable nutrition program for low-income children. As children rely on school meals as a major source of nutrition, the NSLP's ability to provide consistent and quality meals becomes the cornerstone of the student's success. Expanding access and updating the program to meet the needs of today's students ensures that they can continue to strive both inside and outside of the classroom. The NSLP can be closely tied to broader societal trends and other educational policies. For example, the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015 emphasizes equity in education, ensuring that all students, regardless of their socioeconomic background, have access to quality education. The NSLP complements this by addressing the nutritional gaps that may hinder a child's need to focus and perform academically. This is also found in the Child's Nutrition Reauthorization Act, which information is also on your screen. Next, Pamela will dive into policy intentions.
As you've just heard from Khadija, the NSLP was launched in 1946 in the aftermath of World War II, when the United States was faced with two serious challenges: widespread child malnutrition and instability in the agricultural economy. Gordon Gunderson, a U.S. Department of Agriculture official who helped shape and later document the development of the NSLP, reported over 1/3 of young men drafted into military service between 1941 and 1943 were rejected for being too unfit to serve, with poor nutrition to blame. Government officials recognized the situation as both a public health issue as well as a threat to the nation's security. According to the Department of Agriculture, at the same time, agriculture markets were struggling with instability. So the federal government initiated a program to buy surplus crops for school distribution to stabilize market prices and minimize food waste, and the National School Lunch Policy was created. Although the NSLP wasn't originally framed as an educational policy, it became clear over time that student hunger directly impacts learning and that school meals could help. The federal government introduced free and reduced price meals during the War on Poverty in the 1960s. This change demonstrated an increasing understanding that hunger affected student attendance as well as their concentration and their academic success. Research by Ralston demonstrates that nutritional support became integral to educational support, specifically within disadvantaged communities. The link between education and nutritional support became much more evident by the year 2010. By then, this shift in purpose was fully recognized at the national level. The Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, signed into law by former President Obama and championed by former First Lady Michelle Obama, added strong nutritional guidelines and made the intention clear. School meals should support not just health, but academic readiness and long-term success. These developments emerged as an essential component of equitable educational settings, which notably support students who are otherwise left behind. As the article in Ballotpedia we read in week 7 reminds us, educational policies often evolve to reflect shifting national values, and the NSLP is no exception. The NSLP operates at a massive scale. Close to 29 million students are served daily across more than 95,000 schools and institutions. But despite that reach, it's continued to be left out of conversations about school quality, academic outcomes, or educational policy reform, despite the connections being well documented. A study by the Brookings Institution found that schools offering healthier meals saw an average increase of 4 percentile points in student test scores. Additional research from the World Food Program, USA, links school meal access to better attendance and graduation rates. And a recent report from the University of Illinois found that students who receive regular nutritious meals show improvements in concentration, behavior, and emotional well-being. Even with all this evidence, the NSLP is still rarely seen as part of our educational infrastructure. It doesn't carry the same visibility or built-in accountability systems of other policies like the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act or No Child Left Behind. But it's there every day, quietly supporting student readiness in ways that are easy to miss but hard to replace. This isn't just a food program. It's a core part of how many schools meet their students' most basic learning needs. In recent years, the COVID-19 pandemic brought the policy's foundational role back into focus. Emergency waivers from 2020 to 2022 allowed schools to provide universal meals without income verification, showing that the program could quickly scale to meet new levels of need. This was more than just a short-term adjustment. It revealed that a new intention emerging from local and national implementation to ensure dignity and stability for students by eliminating barriers like stigma, debt, or bureaucratic eligibility systems. Several policy proposals since, including the Universal School Meals Act and the School Lunch Debt Cancellation Act, signal a growing recognition that free school meals are a matter of educational equity, not just food accessibility. Here's where this intention hasn't always translated into practice. The program's funding formulas can be uneven across districts, and implementation varies widely by state. Participation has dropped since pandemic-era waivers ended, and in some areas, administrative burden or stigma still keeps eligible students from accessing meals. So what began in 1946 as a dual-purpose solution, combating hunger and stabilizing markets, has over time evolved into a policy with broader intentions to promote equity in school access, to improve academic and behavioral outcomes, to uphold public health standards, and to create school environments where students can learn without shame or hunger. Dr. Margulis's comment to our group early on about the National School Lunch Policy being an invisible policy stuck with us all. Our analysis required us to explore beyond the program's functions and examines its origins and intended recipients while tracking how its objectives evolved over time. It isn't perfect. Like any policy, the NSLP comes with trade-offs. Stricter nutrition rules can lead to more school food waste. Universal meals are great for access, but they raise funding questions. Local control can mean unequal quality. And without strong accountability, its educational role often gets overlooked. Still, the program's impact is hard to ignore, and its future depends on how we navigate those tensions and how openly we're willing to acknowledge those tensions. If the policy is going to keep supporting students' success, it has to be part of the educational conversation and not just the cafeteria conversation. And now, Kelsey will talk about the influence of this policy.
Thank you, Pamela. As we've showcased so far, there are many moving parts when it comes to the National School Lunch Program and recognizing the intention and implementation of this policy. Throughout its creation, policymakers have reviewed and reflected on this imperative policy to understand the influences that drive the impact of the policy. First, we would like to highlight the social influence of the NSLP and how society has driven the policy to promote the health and well-being of the students receiving this resource. This is due to the design of school lunches to meet intentional nutritional needs to ensure students receive a balanced diet, which may not be possible with their family and household situations, as well as the concern of food insecurity within the United States. Thus, with the Brookings Institution study, it provides information showcasing that increasing the nutritional quality of school meals appears to be a promising, cost-effective way to improve student learning. The value of providing healthier public school lunches is true, even without accounting for the potential short and long-term health benefits, such as reduction in child obesity and the development of healthier lifelong eating habits. To address this apparent food insecurity due to poverty of citizens in the United States, a social reformer, Robert Hunter, brought awareness to the unfortunate truth that thousands of students were being sent to school hungry, making it a challenge to focus on their educational journey. This was within Jaylen Brown's research study. Therefore, due to the social influence of this policy, it has worked to enhance learning environments for students, as research shows that when a student's nutritional needs are met, they are proven to be more attentive in class, participation increases, and they are more willing to learn rather than cause disruptions in the classroom. The Food Research and Action Center brings attention to the decrease of tardiness, office referrals, and it has improved rates and improved reading and achievement test scores. Furthermore, they highlight that research shows the influence of this policy is long-lasting with long-term educational attainment for students. In addition, Lambert states that parents should be viewed as an important customer of the NSLP. The actions of school food service directors and future research efforts should be better oriented with an assessment of parents' beliefs towards the NSLP and should involve and view parents as an important part of the program. This directly correlates with the familial influence of the policy, as when parents and guardians understand the importance of the policy's outcomes, it has an influence on their students' educational participation as well. As for the next influence, it is a political influence. The NSLP has been reinvented due to the political influence that generates new ways of thinking and implementing this policy within the education system. As Pamela introduced the intentions of the policy, Dana reinforces the political influence as it highlights how the National School Lunch Program has generated political discussions through bills like the School Lunch Debt Cancellation Act of 2023, which sought to clear existing meal debts, and the Universal School Meal Programs Act of 2023, which planned to provide free meals to all students without income restrictions. The USDA reduced the poverty threshold for universal free meal eligibility from 40% to 25% under the Community Eligibility Provision in 2023. This was found in Mercier's study. Both of these updates have significant implications for both funding and access. In addition, from the Jaylen Brown study, Brown provides crucial information regarding the politics behind the NSLP to provide insight into how in the 1930s, the federal government had no other choice but to address the impact of economic failure that catalyzed poverty and malnutrition, as quoted by Brown. The consequences of the Great Depression in the United States forced policymakers to analyze, reflect, and update the NSLP to continue to provide these resources and opportunities to students to ensure the well-being and health of the nation's students. Politics has also influenced the way the NSLP is approached, as the New York State Education Department Child Nutrition Knowledge Center website provides a connection to the access to civil rights information about the NSLP, which provides an overview of civil rights compliance in school nutrition programs, emphasizing the responsibilities of local and state agencies in ensuring non-discriminatory access. The goal is to eliminate the barriers to uphold the dignity and to ensure equal program access. In addition, the NSLP has also had economic influences. With this, economic influences have demonstrated the impacts that attribute to the success, but also the consequences of this prominent policy. Although the policy has influenced the economy in regards to reduced financial hardship, it has shown a significant return on investment due to decreased waste, the positive impact on school budgets, and significant cost expenditures. It can also create a negative impact on school budgets if there is not adequate funding, as will be further described with Brown's research on this topic. Specifically, Brown addresses how this policy was influenced due to the economic crisis between 2007 and 2008 to address the program's funding concerns. These specific concerns were due to the increased participation in the program and the school district's inability to support this increase. Specifically, Brown states, in December 2008, the School Nutrition Association released a report stating that schools nationwide were serving 425,000 more school lunches than last year. Not only were more students participating in the program, but also more were qualifying for subsidized meals. Therefore, this caused school districts to create a plan to combat the increased expenditures which resulted in only one possible solution, which was to actually increase the lunches of the paying students. With this policy being at the national level, many states were forced to consider how they would move forward, as this could help specific states, such as South Carolina, as they lost about $1 million over 2 years, and the state of California requested an additional $31 million to sustain this rise in student participation, but unfortunately they were not given those funds. Lastly, similar to the social influence of the NSLP, Brown demonstrates how the economic influence impacted more than just the functionality of the schools, but also family dynamics. This influenced the program to turn into a program for all students and not just low-income students. For the last influence that our team focused on is the educational influence. The educational influences of the NSLP include the improvement of academic performance and lesson outcomes. It reduces behavioral issues within the classroom and fosters a caring community, cultivating equity within the education system. Arundel emphasizes the idea that education reforms are most effective and successful when they focus on a small number of priorities that could have a high impact instead of trying to fix everything at once. This helps schools and systems stay on track. For example, prioritizing student opinions during the process of creating or adjusting policy fundamentals demonstrates that the NSLP values student voices and fosters a sense of ownership and engagement. This allows the stakeholders to understand the most important needs at one time and allow for future revisions. This was included in research by the National School Lunch Program on the NICED website. Thus, allowing for students in school communities to thrive when having access to the National School Lunch Program. This is due to the fact that students who are provided with consistent meals at school without worrying how they will pay for it are less likely to repeat grades, classes, or need additional support within their academics. The Food Research and Action Center reinforces this ideology of that students who participate in school breakfast programs and school lunch programs have improved attendance, behavior, academic performance, and achievement overall, as we have stated. Based on decades of research on this topic, by advocating for students to have access to free lunches, it allows them a safe and welcoming environment to build social connections, not only with their peers, but also with staff members. Overall, it is important that while considering NSLP reforms, policymakers understand that there is a strong need for a consistent team and consistent funding to be successful, in addition to long-term investment and clear accountability. I will now turn it over to Richard to discuss the significant impacts of the National School Lunch Program.
I'm Richard Vetta, and I'll be talking about the impacts of the NSLP. As we learned earlier, the NSLP was established in 1946 to combat child malnutrition. One of the most impactful figures that I've seen from studying this is that even though established in 1946, in today's modern world, 30 million children benefit from this program a year in the United States. Now let's look at some of the more positive impacts from the NSLP. The NSLP has played a critical role in addressing childhood hunger and improving nutritional outcomes for millions of students across the United States. By providing free or low-cost meals to eligible students, the NSLP ensures that children from low-income families have access to consistent, balanced meals that meet federal nutritional standards. Research has shown that participation in the NSLP is associated with better overall dietary intake, as students who receive school lunches tend to consume more fruits, vegetables, and whole grains compared to their peers who bring meals from home. These meals not only support physical health, but also contribute to improve cognitive functions and academic performance. Well-nourished students are better able to concentrate and retain information. Beyond immediate health benefits, NSLP has also had long-term positive effects on child development and economic stability. Studies suggest that students who regularly who regularly receive nutritious school meals experience fewer health complications related to malnutrition, obesity, and other related diseases later on in life. Additionally, NSLP helps ease financial strains on low income families by reducing grocery costs and ensuring that children receive at least one substantial meal per school day. This economic relief can lead to greater financial securities for families, allowing them to allocate resources to other essential needs such as housing, healthcare, and education. As a result, the program may not only improve students' health, but also contribute to broader social and economic well being. Now, let's look at some of the unintended consequences, or as I like to call it, the doom and gloom of the NSLP. Even though the NSLP was designed to combat hunger and improve student health, several unintended consequences have emerged. One major issue is food waste, which results from rigid nutritional guidelines that many not that may not align with student preferences or cultural food norms. Research shows that students often discard portions of their meals due to unfamiliarity with certain foods, other options lacking appeal, or strict portion requirements. Additionally, while NSLP aims to provide balanced, nutritious meals, some schools struggle to maintain quality due to budget constraints. As a result, students may receive meals that technically meet nutritional standards but lack variety and appeal, leading to dissatisfaction and ultimately food waste. Another unintended consequence is unequal access and funding disparities, particularly for students with disabilities or those in mixed income schools. Some students with dietary restrictions may find it difficult to receive appropriate dietary accommodations, as not all districts have the resources to provide specialized meals. Funding for the NSLP is allocated based on school income levels, meaning that schools with a mix of low and middle income students may not qualify for as much financial support, despite having students who still need assistance. These disparities can lead to inconsistent meal quality and availability across school districts, limiting the program's effectiveness in achieving food securities for all students. Ways to improve policies would be engaging stakeholders, implementing long term data tracking to refine policies, increasing flexibility for cultural appropriate meals. Now we're going into our takeaways.
So, takeaway one, it's ironic that the National School Lunch Program came about after World War II, especially since food insecurity and malnutrition were already major issues during the Great Depression. However, the war really brought to light how important it was to have healthy, well-nourished populations, especially when many potential soldiers were deemed unfit due to poor nutrition, as Pamela stated during her presentation. The lesson we can learn from delaying policies, such as the National School Lunch Program, is that putting off action on critical issues like hunger and public health often lead to bigger problems down the line. Waiting can result in long-term consequences, from unhealthy communities to growing inequalities. Acting sooner rather than later can make all the difference in building a healthier and stronger society for everyone.
Another takeaway is the big question isn't whether the National School Lunch Program matters, as it clearly does. The question is whether we're ready to see it for what it is, a learning policy, not just a food policy. Its future may depend on whether we treat it as essential to how schools help students thrive, or do we only pay attention to it when there's a crisis or a political spotlight.
In addition to my peers' key takeaways from analyzing the NSLP program, a main insight that our team is taking with us as we continue our educational journey is that despite the numerous benefits of the National School Lunch Program, from our research on this topic, it is apparent that the policy also causes consequences that are not highlighted within society as much as the positives of this policy.
Takeaway 4. NSLP provides nutritious meals for over 30 million children daily, ensuring that students from low-income families receive balanced meals that support their health, academic performance, and overall well-being. The NSLP helps reduce food insecurities for millions of families by offering free or reduced price meals. The program eases financial strain on households, allowing them to allocate resources to other essential needs while ensuring their children receive at least one sustainable meal each school day. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We truly enjoyed bringing this to you. We are Group 1, and our presentation was the National School Lunch Policy.